Could we have order, please? Deputy Adams.
People have been horrified at weekend news reports of the deaths of an estimated 900 people in the Mediterranean. And many of those people died because unscrupulous traffickers locked refugees, including women and children, in the hold of the ship which sank. 1,500 citizens have drowned on their way to Europe in 2015. That's 50 times more than at this point in 2014. And there are other reports of other ships sinking in the last 24 hours. And these images of refugees being rescued are now a nightly sight on our TV screens. You'll know that these people are fleeing conflicts in Syria, Libya, Somalia, Nigeria and other places. They're also fleeing famine and poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. And like the Irish, through the centuries, they are prosecuted and persecuted, injured, hungry and looking for a better life. And their horrors, and we should not lose sight of this, are a direct result of Europe's colonial record over the years and the much more recent policies of the West towards North Africa and the Middle East. Now, Italy has urged the EU to act to prevent further loss of life. EU foreign ministers met and produced a 10-point plan. In my humble opinion, it's inadequate for dealing with this humanitarian disaster. For example, doubling funds to the EU Border Patrol mission will not provide the search and rescue operations needed in the face of this crisis. So, Taoiseach, can you outline for the Dáil the message you will bring to our EU partners and the proposals which you will argue for at Thursday's meeting of EU Heads of State?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, Deputy, as we speak here, there is a commemoration march on at the moment from Strokestown to the east coast, commemorating the fact that 1,100 people walked that after the famine and boarded coffin ships for Canada, where over 700 people died. The point made yesterday was that this replicates what's happening in the Middle East. This is something that is simply appalling in the sense of humanity. And the fact that it's on the Mediterranean exacerbates the situation because people are drowned and their lives are lost, obviously. But you see, when 1 million people leave Syria and go to South Lebanon, or 1 million people leave Syria and go to Jordan with no humanitarian plan to deal with that scale of migration, or when you have countries without boundary in Africa now, moving up from Somalia through Libya to the coast to get to Europe. The scale of this is unprecedented in terms of numbers. Now, Minister Flanagan, representing the government, and Minister Francis Fitzgerald attended at the meeting yesterday in Luxembourg, and there was agreement from the European Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Ministers for Security and Justice on that 10-point plan. President Tusk has called a meeting for Thursday of the European Council to deal with this. I think, Deputy Adams, your question is perfectly valid. It depends upon the scale of investment for search and rescue and for humanitarian relief. And the second part of that is, what is it possible to do in vast areas that are on a knife edge, where you have all kinds of cruelty against humanity being practiced. And these people, desperate in their destitution, are arriving at the shores of the Mediterranean, bound in some cases and being put on ships without captain or steward or compass, doomed before they ever sail. This is something that is an appalling disgrace, and obviously it won't be sorted out at the European Council meeting on Thursday. But I do think that Italy and Malta are to be commended for what they did, and for Italy in terms of the Mare Nostrum procedure that they had. They need assistance now in terms of surveillance, of interception, of rescue and for humanitarian relief. But there is a deeper, much more challenging problem in these vast countries where huge numbers of people are being savagely treated by warring factions, and it's not confined to Libya alone. So Ireland will make its case on Thursday. Ireland will continue to offer humanitarian assistance. A figure of 5,000 refugees has been mentioned, and obviously Ireland will play its part, as it has always done in the very many years gone by. This country sent our people, or our people from this country went wherever they might be welcome. That's one of the reasons we have such an extensive descendant diaspora. But this is an immediate problem. There are children and babies and helpless people being loaded onto boats at this moment by unscrupulous racketeers who know that the quality or the complete inadequacy of the vessels that they're putting them on dooms them to the probability of drowning in the Mediterranean, when all they want is to flee from persecution, to flee from savagery, to flee from death, and to look beyond the immediate shores to a place where they might have hope and a new life.
Thank you.
It's a scale of unprecedented challenge for Europe, for all countries, and for our part, both from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Minister Flanagan, Department of Justice with Minister Fitzgerald, Department of Defence with Minister Coveney. We will contribute in whatever way we can to deal with this.
Come out, Deputy Gerry Adams.
Well, Taoiseach, with respect, and I tried to moderate my question because I don't want to be making any political points out of such a serious issue, but I asked you to outline for us the message you will bring to our European partners and the proposals which you will argue for. You didn't do that, Taoiseach. You told me of a commemorative march to Strokestown, and I commend the people who were on that march. You'll be very familiar with the walk from Louisbourg, the Trail of Tears. I've walked that road myself. Famously, Native Americans assisted Irish people from that region, from your home county. The Choctaw tribe, if I recall properly. They did more in their day for the Irish people than we're doing now in our day. For these folks who are, just being, and it's, as I said earlier, it's a result of direct interference by Western powers in the affairs of the countries and the states which are involved. So these people are being persecuted. They're fleeing for a better life. They're trying to get a better place to live. And it is reported that the EU will seek to stop them at sea. Is that true? What's the government's view of that? Are they going to be detained in Libya in camps? You mentioned the fever camps. I visited the fever camps at Grove Seal on the eastern coast of Canada and North America, where our people died. The coffin ships, no, that's happening now. Now, as we sit here, it's happening. So the proposal to resettle 5,000 immigrants in EU states, it's a drop in the ocean when hundreds of thousands are desperate to travel. A return travel package. What is this, Ryanair? A return travel package to go back to where they're trying to flee from.
Thank you, Deputy.
And the resettlement of 1,200 people. That's what we have done. 1,200 people in 14 years. Like the treatment of the people now in the direct provision centres is not something the government or its predecessors can be proud of. So, Taoiseach, will you accept, as a nation which has suffered conflict, famine, forced emigration, fever camps, death and the whole spectre of coffin ships, that we need to strengthen search and rescue operations through a joint effort involving EU member states? And do you accept that the EU as a whole must provide more safe and legal routes to Europe for those who are now being forced to take dangerous journeys in the first place, and ensure that they have access to international protection? That's the very, very least you could do. You're going to this meeting this week. The very least you could do is to inform the Dáil of what proposals you're going to put to that meeting to help alleviate the plight of these people.
Taoiseach.
Adams, yes, I'm aware of the Walk of Tears, and well aware of the of the incredible story of the Choctaw Indians who sent the equivalent of $10,000 for famine relief arising from that. The purpose of the meeting on Thursday of the European Council is to endorse the 10-point plan put together by the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Ministers for Security and Home Affairs in Luxembourg yesterday. Clearly, there is an immediate catastrophe facing us here. There are people being loaded onto boats and unseaworthy craft now on the shores of Libya. Many of these have travelled from Somalia and from Mali and from other quarters, and others are fleeing the situation that applies both in Syria and in Libya. And they all want to cross the Mediterranean, with Malta and Lampedusa and Italy being the first ports of call. Clearly, this is a matter that is of the utmost seriousness. So what can Ireland do about this? Well, we can contribute with other bigger nations with greater resources. You're well aware of the fact that what's in our own DNA, given our history, leads us to be one of the most humanitarian countries around, proportionately speaking. And we will continue to be that. And as I said, between the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Minister for Justice and the Minister for Defence, we will contribute to this debate on Thursday to hopefully save the lives of those who have just left the shores of Libya in craft that are never going to reach the far side of the Mediterranean. The 10-point plan is there for everybody. These pirates, these smugglers, these unscrupulous people who use this deadly opportunity to make money in dispatching innocent people who are fleeing war, rape, pillage, all kinds of inhumanity against human beings. We put on boats, they're sent off out from the Libyan shore to cross the Mediterranean, in the knowledge that in some cases there's neither skipper, nor captain, nor steward, nor compass to get them to the far side. So what was there with Mare Nostrum did save many lives. I expect, Deputy Adams, that what will come from the meeting on Thursday is a much more focused response, an immediate response, in terms of greater surveillance, greater activity, greater humanitarian relief, greater opportunity for search and rescue of these innocent people.
Thank you.
From a political point of view, the challenge as to the causes of the desperation of so many people to leave for Europe have got to be dealt with in the bigger political field, and that, believe me, as you're well aware, is an enormous challenge indeed.
Thank you. Now for the technical group, Deputy Tom Fleming.